Ever wondered what gave Peter Green's solos their unique emotional punch? I guarantee you it's not just scales. There's a simple technique he used that most guitarists overlook. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how Peter Green crafted his incredible solos, and I'll show you a simple technique that you can use to improvise in that same expressive style. Perhaps the greatest guitarist to play for John Mayall was Peter Green. Green was a major figure of the British blues movement from around 1966 to around 1970, creating songs like Oh Well, The Supernatural, and Black Magic Woman. Yes, that's not a Santana original, it was originally Peter Green's song. And he also was a founder of Fleetwood Mac, which was originally a blues band, not the pop group that they became. He had a lot of fans, including Eric Clapton and B.B. King, who said, "He has the sweetest tone I ever heard. He was the only one who gave me the cold sweats." One thing he did very well, among many things, was to play the slow blues, specifically on the song Someday After a While by Freddie King that appears on the John Mayall album A Hard Road. Someday After a While is a great example of Peter Green's approach to a slow blues. Now, we could talk about just his tone, which was unique in the blues world and still kind of is. We could talk about his phrasing and his dynamics, which were amazing. We could talk about the wonderful storytelling qualities that he had in his play. But I want to focus on one obvious aspect of his play here, and that's that it's intuitive and it's improvised. As you'll see if you Google any live performances, he always played it differently. And that means we can learn to do that too. Not just to play those exact notes, which we'll go over, but to be able to improvise and play our own ideas too, like this. You can do that too, and it doesn't take a lot of theory. But it's not just noodling around with a minor pentatonic either. So let's take a deeper look at it. This looks complicated, but it's not as bad as it first seems. First of all, it's in the key of F, and no, it's not a standard blues, but the first four chords here, the first four bars, are a 1-6-2-5 in F. However, we've changed the flavor of the chords. Instead of D minor, we're playing a D7, and instead of G minor, we're playing a G7. The last four chords are really just a standard blues turnaround, a 1-4-1-5. Now that seems complicated, but remember, Peter Green was improvising when he played, so that means he wasn't thinking all that much. It couldn't have been that complicated. So I want to give you a simple method that works really well for blues and rock, and then we'll go line by line through Peter Green's solo, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, the method consists of two parts, or two rules if you're into that sort of thing. And the second part is by far the most important part, so stay tuned for that. Don't short yourself by only doing the first part. It doesn't really work. The first part is to combine the major and minor pentatonic scales. Here's the F minor pentatonic, and here's the F major pentatonic in the same position. And now here are both of those scales combined in the same position. Now please, please, please don't stop here. You can't just play random notes in a scale. That's going to sound, well, random. In other words, not very good. What we're going to use a scale for is to get from point A to point B. So for example, the first line of the solo is this. So it goes from this, a C note right there, to this note right here on the E string 17th fret, which is an A. Now, we could use the major pentatonic like what Peter Green did. We could use the minor pentatonic. Notice it gives it a little bit different flavor. We could combine those two. And it's just personal taste that gets you from one place to the other. Okay, so now we know how to get from point A to point B. It's to play a scale. But how do we not just play randomly through a scale? How do we choose point B? Well, the answer is simple. Point B is a chord tone, a note in a chord that we're playing, that the rest of the band is playing. That's the answer. But how do you do that? Isn't that hard to do? Well, it does take some work, but there's something simple that you can do that'll pretty much give you instant access to that. You can start doing this instantly, no problem. Let's check it out. Here's how you can do it. Before you start to improvise, you take the position that you're going to play, like right here around the 13th fret, and you find a chord nearby for every one of the chords. So for example, here's one solution. The first chord's an F. There's an F. Second chord's a D. There's a D. Third chord's a G. There's a G. The next chord's a C. There's a C. And finally, there's a B flat. Now, if this feels overwhelming, I get it, but just stop, take a breath, and let's realize all that we've done. We've got a scale that we can use to get from point A to point B, and we've played through a few chords. And that's going to help us understand where to stop. It's going to give us a feel for it. And there's a secret at the end, which I'll share with you, so make sure you watch that. Now, let's put this into action and see how Peter Green did it in Someday After a While. So that's the whole solo, but let's look at it a little more deeply, dividing it up into the first half and the second half. Okay, our first line is this. Now we're starting from nowhere, we're playing 3 pickup notes, and we're headed to an F chord, right? And then we play, that's our first note, that's a stopping point. Now that's a bend to this right here, which is an A, and that A is part of an F chord. So it's a chord tone in F. In fact, it's the 3rd. Now we're playing toward a D. What do? Our next stopping point is there, and guess what that is on the B string 15th fret? That happens to be a D. And that's where playing through the chords first helps, because if we've seen that before, we know already that's a chord tone in D. Our next line is this. That line just plays through the minor pentatonic scale down to a C. And you'll notice that our line ends on a C chord. So again, this time we're playing a root. Now you don't always have to play a root, but it's never wrong to play a root. So we're ending on a C chord, we're playing a C. All right, our next line. Playing from C to F. So here we're playing the minor pentatonic scale, if you want to think about it that way. And then we'll play notes in an F chord. That's an A on the A string 12th fret, and then D string 15th is an F. So again, we land on that root. Great, so now let's take a look at the back half of that solo. Notice that despite the crazy chords, all we're really doing is using chord tones as landing points and using our scale, our combination of the major and minor pentatonic, to get from one place to another. So the back half here is really just a blues turnaround. F to B flat, F to C. We can play pretty conventionally in here, and this is kind of what is being done. So it starts out with this line. So the first part is just a little rake here to an F, and then we're kind of playing through the B flat. We're not really landing anywhere on that B flat. So there's this little dipsy doodle thing here. That's just a little kind of noodly lick in F minor pentatonic, right, primarily, although ending on that chord tone in F. And then finally, beautiful way of handling that turnaround, getting from F to the C. Check this out. So lovely. I love that turnaround, classic, where we're just playing a C, and then dropping down an octave and playing another C. What a way to end it. Simple, super simple. What's the secret? Well, it's actually really simple. If you make this a regular part of your practice, if you play through the chords right before you start to improvise, your ears will start to adjust and you'll start to feel those chord tones. You really will. You'll start to play them intuitively. It'll become natural and you'll start to be able to play with lots of emotions. This stuff really works. But to make your life easier, I've created a free resource for you. It's a free triad map so you can find those chords a lot more easily and quickly. It's linked in the description below. It's totally free. So go ahead and click on that link, get the free triad map, and I'll see you on down the road.